You don't want to end up like the spokesman for Subway, do you?
Did you just use a term that excludes women from an occupation?
Okay, let's back up.
Ah! Did you just say spokesman instead of spokesperson when women are just as capable of selling sandwiches as anyone? Are you purposefully trying to use words that assert your male privilege?
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. Another week, another Tom Taylor comic from DC Comics that I gotta talk about. This guy was absolutely dreadful in Marvel Comics. He ruined several characters, several franchises. When he came over to DC, he started doing a little bit of work here and there. Obviously, Injustice is the first big thing that he did. He did a couple Batman, annuals that were good. Deceased kind of got me to turn my belief in how good of a writer he could be, right? I was like, okay, this is actually good. He's staying within the characters. He's not using them as like political mouthpieces, kind of stuff like that. I was kind of excited that he was going to be on Nightwing. I was excited he's going to be doing this new Superman book. We'll see what happens. And now that I've seen what's happening, I'm absolutely not excited. This is what I expect. This is why I didn't want to read Deceased, because of crap like this. And of course, we are in another week. It's another time to talk about Superman, Son of Kal-El, the second issue. I think a lot of people were expecting to see some type of, coming out party for Jon Kent as a new LGBTQ plus representative character. That certainly doesn't happen, although, there's a little flirting going on. But all the other stuff around this is what the real story is. This shouldn't be called Superman, Son of Kal-El. It should be Superman, Son of Tom Taylor. Perhaps it's what if Tom Taylor was Superman, just like Nightwing has become what if Tom Taylor was Batman. What would he do with all that power? What would he do with all that money? What would he do with all that responsibility? He wouldn't save people. Let's just put it that way. That would be beneath Tom Taylor if he was a superhero, and he's making that quite clear. He would be tackling all the social justice and big issues that everyone talks about nowadays. Superman under Tom Taylor no longer fights for true justice in the American way. He fights for political correctness, social justice, and the progressive way. He might as well be a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party. It's absolutely insane. And not even just like the mainstream Democratic Party, like the far left ones, the ones that even normal liberals think are crazy. That's essentially what Tom Taylor is doing with this character. I'm surprised the Biden administration themselves aren't paying for this comic book. They might as well. I can't think of anything like more. This guy's essentially like a mouthpiece for the American government, even though he's Australian, which, let's be honest, if you're watching what's happening in Australia, they're even a little crazy over there. They're even going even farther to the left. So it's no surprise that this is happening. Let's just get into some of the details of this week. Hey, and here's a little spoiler. Superman Clark Kent was a piece of crap, and he never did anything good. Don't worry, Tom Taylor's going to explain that to you. But before he does that, we get some not-so-subtle messaging right up front. Jon Kent has taken on a secret identity with a stupid wig as he wants to go to university and have something resembling a normal life. And as he's arriving at the university, trying to blend in, we see this shadowy figure loading up some magazines on a weapon. And guess what he's scribbled on the bullets? Thoughts and prayers. This certainly can be taken a couple ways. You could take this as anti-Christian rhetoric. You certainly see a lot of Christians, when things happen, they send out thoughts and prayers to people, let them know that they're concerned, that you're going to be in our prayers, and we wish you a speedy recovery. I think this is probably more along the lines of a gun control message, that Tom Taylor doesn't think sending thoughts and prayers is enough when it comes to his idea of what gun control should be. And of course, if you see what's happening in Australia, his idea of gun control probably is to remove weapons from everyone, even though it's, obviously it is a guaranteed right under the Constitution, right? One of the Bill of Rights, right to bear arms. This isn't Australia, Tom. But of course, he's sending a message, so subtle, right? Thoughts and prayers on the bullets, as this character is about to spray down all the students that are waiting to sign up and go into university the first day. Of course, Jon Kent thwarts him and, has to abandon his secret identity right off the bat. So this is about as nuanced as a heart attack. which is something that you would expect from Tom Taylor. The guy, as a writer, he's a hack job. He's good when he has heavy editorial support, and he's not allowed to place his own personal agendas into the character. This is him placing his own personal agendas into the character. And if we're seeing what's happening in Australia, quite frankly, it's frightening. If you let the Tom Taylors of the world kind of get their way and take things over, everybody will be getting pepper sprayed and choked out, for walking their dogs and shit. But that's the world Tom Taylor would like to Jon Kent to usher in for us. Make no doubt about it. And we get to this. He's been doing this. We saw it in Nightwing. I didn't cover that one heavily, but he is using Superman, Clark Kent, because he's going off to Warworld, as a mouthpiece, a sounding board, as a character to validate not Jon Kent's words, but Tom Taylor's words. He did it in Nightwing. We see it right here in Superman, Son of Kal-El with Jon Kent. You know what? You're right the whole time, Nightwing. Your plan is great. I wish I could do something like that. I'm a second-rate superhero compared to you guys. You're thinking of the big picture stuff. The reason that Clark Kent has always been relatable and such a wonderful character is he has the power to take over the world, but he's humble. He loves people. He understands that humans make mistakes. He's out there to help you, to save people, and set the best example that he can. And that is heroic. To go out there because you have great power, to bully people, to make people succumb to your own will is tyrannical, which is what we're essentially seeing from Jon Kent, which I called in the very beginning. And people, you're looking too far into it, Wes. Oh, I didn't look far enough into it. I didn't think we'd get this far down the tracks at issue number 2, but I will say, Wes, you were completely correct. And according to Tom Taylor, Batman's a piece of shit. Never deserves that $1 billion. If he really wanted to help the people of Gotham, he would have given it all away, just like Tom Taylor did when he became Nightwing. And Superman's a piece of shit. If he really loved people, if he really wanted to change the world, he would have used his power for good, rather than understanding that people are allowed to err, that governments are allowed to represent themselves, and sometimes people make mistakes, and that he's there to help the people that need it the most. So this is the conversation. This is the start off. They're talking about the world. What can you can see what I see, Dad? Ocean struggling to breathe, forests disappearing, ice melting, inaction due to selflessness and fear, division and tribalism, and stupid borders. Oh, those stupid borders. Nobody wants to protect their culture or keep their borders secure. No one's ever wanted to keep their borders secure. But it's something that Tom Taylor really believes in. Pretty easy to say when you're living in Australia and you're bordering an ocean and people just could dalliance right over and come into your country. You have to actually kind of welcome them. Borders are actually pretty important. Maintaining your sovereignty as a nation is actually important. There's a reason. Essentially, every country in the world does it. And if you don't, you're asking for trouble. But Tom Taylor does not like borders. He makes that perfectly clear. And he continues talking, Tom Taylor does. I get you're having a bad day, but that's pretty bleak. Right, actually, that's from Superman. And Tom Taylor says, am I wrong? Superman says, no, you're not wrong. But you've looked at the small, now look at the big. What could it be? And Tom says, it could be a place where every problem could be tackled if only the world would unite. A place where one or no one is left behind. Every problem can't be tackled. Every problem is nuanced. Every problem is complicated. Every problem has multiple solutions. When you're talking about governance and the way the world runs, there's not one solution that will fit everybody equally. This idea of equity for everybody is the most insane thing in the world. They've tried it in multiple places. It's never worked. The only way that it works is that everybody ends up in absolute destitute poverty, except for, the absolute haves. Everyone else becomes the absolute have-nots. There's no middle class. Everyone's poor or they're rich and taken care of. And then he says, Dad. Tom Taylor, calling Clark Kent Dad, kind of weird. Why don't you do more? Oh, yeah, Superman's never done anything, has he? He's never saved the world. He's never fought, an enormous beast of a monster of such powers that he ended up absolutely had him fighting to the death in front of everybody, and his own mother ended up watching him die. He's never gone out and, sacrificed himself. Superman. Asking Superman why he didn't do more is the most insane thing in the world. But that's what Tom Taylor's asking. If he were Superman, he would have done more. He wouldn't have saved people. He would have saved nations. He wouldn't have helped somebody that was getting mugged. He would have solved, the pay gap. He wouldn't have went out there and freed some people from terrorists. He would have what would he have done? He would have made sure that there was affordable housing for all and a livable wage. All these things that are supposed to be taken care of by government, where people get a say in these things. And I think that's the thing that we're coming to grips with. There's a section of people that don't want everyone to have an equal say in these things. They want to tell you how it has to be. No questions asked. Tom Taylor's one of those people, in my opinion. This continues. Tom Taylor says, sorry, I didn't mean. Clark, it's okay. Bullets bounce off me. I should be able to handle some constructive criticism. I think part of me holds back because I wasn't born here. I can help, but I can't lead except by example. Part of me feels it's not my place. Have you ever felt that about Superman? Because that's how Tom Taylor feels about Superman. Have you ever thought, you know what? Superman wouldn't save that person. It's not even his neighborhood. There are certainly times when Superman feels a little alienated, but it's not because he's from Krypton. It's because he holds this immense amount of power. And there's literally nobody else in the world, I guess, other than, his cousin, who gives a shit about that character. She shows up every once in a while. There's no one in the world that knows how he feels. It must be a very isolating existence. It's like being Michael Jordan. Can you imagine being on the Chicago Bulls? You're Michael Jordan. Sure, you got Scottie Pippen. He's a future Hall of Famer, but he's not Michael Jordan. You probably watch these people practice all day, and you're like, I don't even know what it's like not to be the best basketball player in the history of existence. Superman doesn't know what it's like to be an ordinary human being without having these wonderful physical gifts. So yes, that does make him feel a little different than other people. But I've never, ever in my life gotten the feeling that, yeah, Superman, he's just not going to intervene in that one. I'm not really from around here. Why would I save that lady? She's not from my neck of the woods. This is the kind of shit that John Ridley would also have you believe about Superman. And that is so far outside of the character. And just putting those words in his mouth just tells you what kind of writer Tom Taylor is. He's awful. And he's destroying Jon Kent within 2 issues. I said after issue 1, clearly he's going to be a tyrant. And here after issue 2, he's already browbeating his own father, who's done more than any superhero in DC Comics history. Saved more people than we can any of us can imagine. Saved more planets. All selflessly done, and letting him know you didn't do enough. Tom Taylor would have used that power, and he would change the will of the people. He would have changed the hearts of the people. Not by setting a good example, by making them change, as we saw in Injustice when he takes over the world. That's not the real Superman, but apparently it is to Tom Taylor, and that's who Jon Kent's going to be. And of course, Tom Taylor continues talking to Clark Kent. Well, that's idiotic. And Clark says, your criticism is getting less constructive. You're the greatest hero on the planet. If you won't step up, who will? How in the hell has Superman never stood up? Has Superman ever said, you know what? I'm sitting this one out, boys. This is my fight. I don't feel like I want to be in this one when it comes to saving people. There certainly have been opportunities where people would like to exploit Superman, as Tom Taylor is doing here, where within character he said, you know what? It's not my place. I think I'll just keep saving people. You guys can do all of your political song and dance mumbo jumbo crap. I'm going to keep doing my mission. But here's the part where, like all of these crap woke creators, they use the established characters to validate the words of the writer, not the the position of the character. Because make no mistake, this is not Jon Kent that we're reading here. This is what if Tom Taylor was the new Superman. Nightwing is what if Tom Taylor was Batman and was a billionaire all of a sudden. And that's what we're getting in these, and that's why they're absolute shit. Of course, Clark Kent, has to affirm Tom Taylor's beliefs about himself. I was thinking you. This is your planet. It says, John, we know it should say Tom. This is your place. And Tom says, are you literally dropping the weight of the world on my shoulders? You won't have to lift it alone. You'll have friends to help you bear the burden. Like Nightwing, apparently. I don't really have, whatever. He ends up giving the keys to this Fortress of Solitude, whatever. This is what Tom Taylor thinks of Superman. Very similar to what John Ridley thinks of Superman. John Ridley said Superman wouldn't help people on the other side of the tracks because they were a different race than him, even though he's not even human. Even though he's accepted humanity as they are with all their faults and decided to still be their champion. Even though he's helped people regardless of circumstances. But that's not how John Ridley sees a character. That's not how Tom Taylor sees a character. And it's obviously not how DC Comics, their leadership and editorial teams see the character. They see Superman as outdated. If Superman really wanted to save people, he would fight global warming. He would be fighting things like the pay gap. He would be fighting for a living wage. Who wants to read a comic book about these things? I want to see heroic characters doing heroic things and saving people. But that is not big enough for DC Comics anymore. That's why they brought in Tom Taylor. That's why they've taken the reins off. There's no more filter on this motherfucker. There's no more governor on him. And he's going to be spewing all of his bullshit until all of his comics get canceled, which will not take very long. Because trust me, this will be driving people away in fucking droves. I'm not gonna be the only one that saw this. Now there was the idea that perhaps Jon Kent would be meeting his future boyfriend. I may have made a joke about them playing tummy sticks. That certainly does not happen in this comic book. Will it be happening in 3 issues from now? We do know it looks like Superman Jon Kent is in very bad shape, and Jay Nakamura here is holding him, perhaps caressing him if you looked at the cover. You could take it in multiple different ways. Are they about to become lovers? Friends? A couple? I don't know. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But there is a flirtatious moment. They've got a little grin going back and forth as Jay gives him his stupid wig back. And he says, I think I understand why you were wearing that terrible wig. And Tom Taylor says, was it really that bad? And Jay Nakamura says, oh yeah, it did absolutely nothing for you, with a little wink, right? And Tom says, this is the problem with having hair that's impervious to bleach. That was hilarious. What an absolute gut buster there, Tom Taylor, in your politically filled, propaganda manual here that you've decided to disguise as a fucking comic book. I don't know. You're gonna say, Wes, if you don't like it, don't read it. Fuck you. I'm gonna read this, and I'm gonna point this bullshit out every single time. That way I can throw it in the faces of all the people that said, Wes, you're seeing things that aren't there. You're overreacting. No, I'm not. I have 20/10 vision on this motherfucker. Not only can I see what's right in front of me, I can see 500 yards behind me, or what's coming up 500 yards behind this, because Tom Taylor is Tom Taylor. He is who we thought he was. Deceased was a fucking anomaly. Injustice is an anomaly. We are seeing Tom Taylor's true colors. He's a propagandist. He's not a comic book writer. He can be a comic book writer, but he chooses otherwise. This is Tom Taylor at DC Comics that you're going to be seeing moving forward. You can keep denying it, but trust me, each and every issue will be confirmed more and more and more that I was correct the whole time, starting with issue number 1, and certainly we're going to be seeing this continuation in Nightwing as well. He can't help himself. And now that the filters are off, now that the editorial oversight and the ability to tell him no, or that might not be the best thing for the character, is completely apparently out the window, he will continue to destroy characters at DC Comics, because that's what he does.